Today we have Paul Mann, CEO of ASP Isotopes, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker ASPI. Paul, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
ASP Isotopes is commercializing proven and proprietary technology for manufacturing a diverse range of isotopes to meet growing demand in nuclear medicine and green energy. For viewers new to the story, Paul, why is isotope demand increasing, and how is ASP Isotopes uniquely positioned to supply isotopes to meet this demand?
So right now we have strong demand for isotopes as well as supply side pressure, which puts us in a pretty unique position in history. In terms of the supply side, 85% of stable isotopes for healthcare come from Russia, remaining 15% from Europe. So there is no domestic US producer of these types of stable isotopes. Looking at critical parts of the infrastructure in the United States, isotopes such as lithium-7 are required to keep nuclear power stations operational. 100% of lithium-7 comes from Russia. The USA imports about 90% of its enriched uranium for nuclear power. So there's a real supply-side shortage of isotopes and a supply-side pressure. At the same time, we see good demand growth as well. Healthcare applications for isotopes have traditionally grown at GDP plus a few points, and I wouldn't expect that to change anytime soon. And there are many new uses for isotopes emerging, such silicon-28 for quantum computing and artificial intelligence, new types of green energy, new uses for healthcare and oncology treatments. So lots of interesting new growth areas. At the same time, we're seeing supply-side pressure. What's interesting about ASPI is that we have a unique technology that allows us to enrich isotopes in a very cheap, efficient fashion. Our cost of building a plant is much lower than traditional centrifuges. We can do it more quickly, and we have a lot of interest from both companies and governments who need isotopes they can't get supply of right now. So it's a great. We're very excited by the future and the opportunity to have in front of us.
Paul, how big do you estimate the market opportunity is for isotopes?
Yeah, that's a bit like asking, how big is a plate of food? It depends on whose plate of food it is. But, for something like HALEU, so high assay low enriched uranium, we've had interest in over $30 billion of product from just two customers. And we're talking to more. So perhaps actually the ultimate demand over a number of years is even bigger than that. But something like carbon-14, the contract we signed with a Canadian customer there is for a minimum take or pay of just $2.5 million a year, and perhaps the market is twice that size. So it really depends. The size of each market depends upon which exactly isotope we're looking at. And what's exciting about the opportunity here, the opportunities that we have in front of us here, is that there really is so little competition, and we have a long list of companies that are requesting isotopes from us. So we've got many years of growth ahead of us. It's really very exciting.
ASP Isotopes currently has 2 plants in South Africa that are expected to enter commercial production in the coming months. What can you tell us about these facilities, and why South Africa?
Yeah, so South Africa has actually got a long history in the enrichment industry, in the nuclear industry. During the apartheid years, the country enriched its own uranium, both for weapons and for nuclear fuel. South Africa changed a lot during the early 1990s. The country obviously saw a positive change in its political environment, and the country exited its enrichment industry. It closed down its weapons program. The country joined the International Atomic Energy Agency. They became signatories of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And so our scientists who grew up in that industry started to look for other ways to enrich isotopes for more peaceful applications, such as healthcare and other advanced technologies. So we have 2 plants in South Africa. We acquired them both during essentially a bankruptcy process in South Africa about 2 years ago. The first is a quite small plant that'll produce the world's demand of carbon-14. That'll go into production late this year, early next year. And that plant's entirely sold out to a Canadian customer. And the second plant's a lot bigger. That can produce isotopes such as molybdenum-100 and silicon-28. And again, that'll be producing isotopes early part of next year. We've signed 2 contracts for production from that facility.
Paul, you recently announced the formation of Quantum Leap Energy, a new subsidiary focusing on the future needs for nuclear fuels. Talk to us about this subsidiary and what nuclear fuels you intend to produce.
Yeah, so the world has a challenging equation to solve over the next 30 years. Somehow we have to double electricity production whilst keeping carbon emissions neutral or flat. Wind and solar are great when you've got wind and sun, but when you haven't got wind and sun, they're kind of a problem. In our opinion, and I think most countries are coming to this view as well, nuclear power is the answer to a green, environmentally friendly baseload for most countries. And in our opinion, and I think most other people's view, small modular reactors are the future for nuclear energy. This is a bit like the Ford Model T of motor cars into nuclear engineering. It brings production line economics to an industry and can collapse the cost dramatically. The benefits of an SMR is that almost anyone in the world can have access to very cheap, environmentally friendly energy. This is really important because if we're going to transform the world to a greener, low carbon footprint, that green energy has to trade at a discount to hydrocarbon energy. You can't go to emerging markets and ask emerging market citizens to pay a premium for green energy. It's not going to work. And historically, green energy is traded at a premium to hydrocarbon-based energy. And what we're excited about is being able to produce nuclear fuels that will allow energy in the future, green energy, to trade at a discount to hydrocarbon-based energy. So we've been talking to a lot of SMR companies about their needs for nuclear fuels over the last 18 months. We're talking to 4 or 5 pretty big ones in the United States. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with a very large SMR company to build a plant that can produce HALEU, high-assay low-enriched uranium. And that's what these companies need to produce the nuclear power. And right now, there is no Western producer of commercial quantities of HALEU. And so that's our goal over the next several years, is to become the leading supplier of HALEU. The other fuel we're looking at is lithium-6 and lithium-7. Lithium-6 is going to be required for nuclear fusion. And again, there's no Western producer of lithium-6 right now.
Paul, there are many people out there that think wind and solar are the future for green energy and not nuclear. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the future requires a combination of approaches. Wind and solar is great when you have wind and you have sun. But in some parts of the world or some countries, you simply can't rely on those two forms of green energy, particularly those in the northern and southern latitudes where you have long nights in the winter and long days in the summer. Some countries simply don't have enough wind to power the country. Some countries are looking at tidal power as well. So some countries have got strong tides, but others don't. I think the future requires all of those approaches. But certainly a lot of countries are focusing on nuclear. And we agree that for countries that can't benefit from solar and wind, nuclear is the way forward.
Paul, we get a lot of questions here at RedShip about the cash position of ASP Isotopes. Talk to us about that for a moment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we actually just raised recently, in fact this week, a little over $9 million. We actually had a reverse inquiry from a group of nuclear/uranium clean energy investors who wanted to invest in the company and couldn't find the liquidity in the marketplace. So I think our 10Q said we finished June with about $3 million of cash in the balance sheet. We've just raised another $9 million. In September, we actually received our first prepayment from a customer to secure deliveries in 2024. So we feel our balance sheet is really pretty strong right now. Plenty of runway. We don't spend much money as a company. And as we look forward to 2024, we've signed 3 contracts that should start bringing in substantial amounts of free cash flow. The first is for carbon-14. That's a minimum take-or-pay of $2.5 million a year, which is supported by a bank letter of guarantee. We signed a $9 million agreement with a US customer for a highly enriched metal. Then we have a customer in China that would like up to $27 million of molybdenum-100. And we're still talking to a couple of customers who may well end up supplying in 2024. So we feel in a really strong position right now with a balance sheet, plenty of cash on it, 2 plants that are pretty much ready to go, and a long list of customers wanting product next year.
Now, Paul, you've been touching on this before, but I want to know more. How is your quantum enrichment technology different from other enrichment methods?
So our quantum enrichment technology uses a laser to excite certain isotopes and extract them out of the mixture, as it were. The benefits of our approach is that we have substantially lower capex relative to a traditional centrifuge. We're talking tens of millions of dollars rather than billions of dollars. And it's a very effective way of enriching small quantities of highly specialized products. So centrifuges are great at producing thousands of metric tons a year of very commoditized products. But our laser approach is better at producing maybe tens of tons of very specialist products a year. And that's one of the reasons why SMR companies or nuclear companies are interested in investing in the technology, because the return on capital is substantially higher than that in a traditional centrifuge, which is typically billions of dollars for a few $1 million of free cash flow.
Paul, it goes without saying that management is key to any company, and especially a smaller cap company. What can you tell us about some of the key players on your team?
We've been very lucky to inherit a great group of scientists in South Africa. We've got about 50 employees now in South Africa, about 7 PhDs. In fact, one of our members has 2 PhDs, one in chemistry and one in physics. About 10 advanced degrees of chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. So when you have that kind of technical capability, that allows us to do some great science and great engineering, and that's really what's allowed us to build these 2 plants so quickly. We've got a great board of directors as well, a very diverse board of directors as well, which is very supportive, and they understand the science too. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to hire great people and retain them.
Paul, we've been talking a lot here about your great company. Let's wrap it all up now into an essential value proposition for our viewers out there. Why should they pay attention to ASP Isotopes right now?
We're at a significant inflection point in the company as we gear up to first production and free cash flow next year. We've got a long list of opportunities ahead of us, not a lot of competition competing for those opportunities. And so it's really exciting to be involved in that industry. As I look forward to 12, 18, 24 months' time, I'd like to think we have good free cash flow coming from our 2 plants in South Africa. We're building plants in a new geography with low-cost green energy, such as Iceland, and we're making good progress towards producing nuclear fuels for the future. So an exciting next 12, 24 months ahead of us. I hope people can join us on that journey.
It is a fascinating story, Paul. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.